This is my completely stock Savage Axis, and I'm going to explain how I turned it into what I consider to be a decent looking sub-MOA gun for just over $200, not including the scope and bipod, with just minor modifications that anybody can do with simple tools found around the house and the bolt-in stock. This is the Boyd's @1 stock that you can get in a variety of colors, and you can get some custom configurations, but I didn't. I just got the standard @1 stock, and it was about 200 shipped. I removed the action from the Savage stock, plastic stock, and I seated the action in the @1 Boyd stock. After seating the action, I noticed that the barrel was not laying in the barrel channel straight. It was off to one side. So I turned the gun over and I looked through the magazine port to see if I could see a reason that was obvious why it was off to one side. And I initially thought that the problem was the inletting of the stock behind the barrel lug, or the action lug, I should say. And I took a Dremel tool with a drum sander and I relieved it slightly. As it turns out, I was wrong. So turn yours over when you seat it in the stock if you're having the same problem, and you can see where I've highlighted in the picture where the action meets the stock, and look for any obvious problems there. Forward the action lug. The inletting creates a shelf. This is where my problem was. So I actually took the Dremel tool and a very sharp chisel, and I very carefully removed some material where the yellow is, but mostly where the green highlight is. That's what created the problem for me. And you can ascertain if you have a problem what you need to do, because it was actually obvious. I was a little bit surprised, because other than that, the stock is flawless. I mean, I was actually pretty impressed with the quality of the inletting and the quality of the stock in general. Next was the trigger mod. I removed the factory screw and spring, and I bought these Diablo Tuning 1024 by ½ inch set screws, and I put one of them in my lathe, and I removed the threads on the upper half of the screw, and then I reinserted it with a 20 thousandths wire spring of comparable overall length, which I believe is probably about half the wire size of the factory screw, or spring, excuse me. So this dropped the trigger pull in conjunction with some moly paste on the sear, which I didn't touch the sear at all. I just changed the spring and I used that screw. Most people use a machine screw, but the head sticks down, and I saw complaints on the internet that it interfered with the action, which is why I went with the set screw. And you can see how clean the mod is. But by just removing the threads and using that as a guide for the new spring, I dropped the pull from just over 6 pounds, which was horrible, down to just over 4 pounds. And it really made a difference. And again, I put some moly paste on the sear, and it made a decent trigger. Now, you could probably do a little better, but I mean, wait till you see the difference in the groups from just this simple little $5 mod with the spring and the set screw. So this was the first trip out with no mods. This was right out of the box, and it was at 100 yards, and the Nosler with the Sierra Match Kings turned into best group at 2.65 OTO, so probably about 2.3 center to center. PMC was probably not as bad as it looks, which is about a 6-inch group. I would probably say that some of that was due to trigger pull, and I wasn't used to the hard recoiling 308 because I haven't shot a heavy caliber like this in a long time. I've been mostly shooting rimfire. And the Federal was probably about 3 to 4 inches, and it was the military ammo. And again, I attribute this probably mostly to the heavy trigger pull and the aversion to the recoil. So this was my second trip out. Still no mods, but I'm a little bit more used to the recoil, and I'm using the Federal military stuff to dial in the scope. And you can see that I've circled the first group of the day in the center, but then I switched over to the Gorilla, which had a 170 something Sierra Match King, and I've shrunk the groups to probably about 3 inches on average. And the Federal with the Sierra Match King, I think it's 168, on the right hand side, top and bottom, was showing the best performance, and the groups were probably sub 3 inches. So now I've done all the mods, and I've settled on the Federals. I'm just not screwing around with anything. I think I used the Gorilla just to dial in the scope, and you can see that I've covered some target dots and then numbered them as I walked the scope in. And then once I had it walked in, I shot a group in the center with the Gorilla. And you can see that now I've got everything well after the mods, well under 3 inches. And with the group on the right-hand side, top and bottom, they were both Federal. And it was the second group I shot. I mean, I was just holding my breath when I was going for that fifth shot, which I believe happened to be the one right in the center. And I turned in this group that was, I think, like a point 8 something. It was sub-MOA at 100 yards. So I would say that the gun is now, with the trigger mod and the new stock, easily turning in a sub 2-inch groups consistently, and with the Sierra Match Kings. And you can see that it has the potential with disciplined shooting to be a sub-MOA gun. Just really, really happy with it, considering that, you know, it's Savage's bottom of the line, and you know, the Boyd stock is pretty nice. I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about 308. That's why I didn't want to dump a lot of money into a brand new gun. Now the Savage 10 actions are really the Savages to have, but you know, it's about twice as much money, but you do get like 4 times as much gun. I mean, it's a really nice gun. I have a Harris bipod on this, and that is a Bushnell Legend, like 3.5 by 12 or 14, I forget, a side focus with mil dot, and it's actually a pretty nice scope. I'm able to see when it's dialed all the way up. I'm able to see the bullet holes at 100 yards, and I'm happy with it so far. And not a great combination, but I'm actually just shaking out 308 to see how I like it. And so far, I'm very happy with it. I don't see any reason why, with a little bit of practice, you know, I can't step out to 200 or 300 yards with this gun. And honestly, if it continues to hold MOA, I mean, theoretically, you should be able to go out to 800 yards with this gun. So, you know, I'm going to play around with it a little more in its current configuration and see how I like it. But I also have the potential now to bed the stock. So I wasn't that worried if I had removed a little bit too much material, because if anything, I mean, you know, it's going to help with the bedding. And then I can still reduce the trigger pull even more, bring it down to like 2 pounds by working on the sear and hand loading. So really, though, the action and the barrel, probably with bedding, trigger work, and hand loading, I mean, if I got that one like 0.85 group like this with just a spring change and a little molly and a stock. Imagine if I bed, get the trigger pulled down even further to like 2 pounds and hand load. You're talking like, what, 0.5? Most likely. So all in all, not a bad gun. You know, for what it's worth, hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, if you want to comment about your particular Axis in the comments, I'd be interested to hear what everybody's doing. Now, you know, look, I'm not trying to make this into a precision long-range rifle, so don't misunderstand what we're doing here. Like I said, I just wanted to check out 308 as cheaply as I could. And hope you enjoyed it.